Rishi Sunak, last night, Friday evening, in the pouring rain, he gave a speech. Some of us thought, is he going to announce the date of a general election? But no, what he did was claim that democracy is under threat from extremism in the wake of Hamas's October the 7th attack on Israel.
In a speech which was directed to the nation, he said there are forces here at home which are trying to tear us apart. And we can hear part of that speech.
I fear that our great achievement in building the world's most successful multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy is being deliberately undermined. There are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. On too many occasions recently, our streets have been hijacked by small groups who are hostile to our values and have no respect for our democratic traditions. Threats of violence and intimidation are alien to our way of doing things. They must be resisted at all times.
We are joined now by former UKIP Deputy Chair and political commentator Suzanne Evans, welcome, and former Labour advisor Kevin Meagher. So, Suzanne, we've had a number of views about the utility of this speech. Was it a good thing to do? Was it a good thing to do it in Downing Street rather than the House of Commons? What are your views on the quality of the speech and the place where it was delivered and the time of the delivery?
Frankly, Michael, I don't really care where he did it, but I was thinking about the lack of quality in it. I have to say I was furious, actually, when I heard the speech, because he's finally waken up to this threat that some of us have been talking about for decades. And what's he going to do about it? There was nothing in that speech. He talked about, a robust new framework. The jihadis must be quaking in their boots. I was absolutely horrified. Here we have a prime minister leading a Conservative government that for 13 years has had the ability to do something about terrorism and extremism in this country. And actually, in many senses, by continuing to push a flawed doctrine of multiculturalism, basically saying that we can invite anyone from all over the world, wherever they come from, whatever lack of British values or they may have, they can carry on behaving in exactly the same way when they're here. It's not about multi-ethnicity. It's not about having a vibrant, diverse country. This is the specific philosophy of multiculturalism, which says you can come here, but you don't have to fit in. He's sacked two people who have been warning about this. Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, and he's removed the whip from Lee Anderson, the MP who's been talking about this too. It's hard to take this man seriously. He comes out, he makes a grand, fine speech with some fine words, but his actions, I'm afraid, if you're going to judge politicians by their actions rather than their words, on every count, Sunak has failed and the Conservative government has failed on this.
Well, some would suggest that parts of what he said was quite tough. I mean, he was talking about deporting people, rescinding the visas of those who are protesting in an extreme manner. And also, when it comes to Suella Braverman and Lee Anderson comments, and on the far left as well, there is a suggestion that that sort of rhetoric does not help matters and is also divisive, Kevin Meagher.
It is. I mean, it struck me as slightly unusual. I think when the Prime Minister comes out to the lectern at Downing Street, you kind of always expect the worst, and you expect certainly the holder of that office to come out there and encapsulate the problem that they're talking about. And I don't think Rishi Sunak managed to achieve that last night. It wasn't abundantly clear what he's talking about. He's talking in code. He's talking about very dramatic issues, but he's not managing to quantify them. I mean, the first challenge, obviously, in fixing any political problem is to be able to quantify what that problem is. And Rishi Sunak, I think, completely failed to do that. It's not clear to me, and I suspect it's not clear to the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police or his officers, what they're supposed to do differently today than they were supposed to do differently before Rishi Sunak made that announcement.
Yeah, you're referring to him saying about police must just not about just managing, it's also about policing. That was quite a veiled threat in some ways.
Kevin, given your criticism, why was it that Keir Starmer was so supportive?
I don't know. Again, what is the specific problem that we're talking about? We seem to be talking a lot about a mood, a vibe in the country, a kind of slightly incoherent problem. But let's look at the other end of the evidence scale. How many people are being convicted at these protests or marches? How many people have been arrested? How much damage is being done at these marches? Now there's a lot of anger clearly in the country about what's going on in Gaza. That's legitimate a legitimate form of protest. There's obviously an underlying issue with Islamism in this country and its expression, and its malignant expression, and often it bolts itself onto perfectly legitimate political grievances. That specific problem needs to genuinely be addressed. But I mean, Suzanne, in a sense, makes the point. Rishi Sunak's government has been the weakest on immigration that we've ever seen in this country, and has incorporated an awful lot of this problem in recent years and done very, very little about it. The substance of what Rishi Sunak said within this kind of confection of kind of half measures and kind of elliptical points was about redoubling prevent. Now, it strikes me then, it has prevent failed. Is that what he's saying? Because, if we're going to do a review of something, clearly it isn't working. A crackdown on campus. Again, we've heard this promise for the last 4 or 5 years about crackdowns on campus activities and the right of free speech and to students to avoid being intimidated. Again, what's happened? Why have we not seen some deliverable action on that point? And if the issue is about people coming into this country to cause problems, then stop them coming in. Rishi Sunak's got the worst record on immigration of any prime minister in British history. So start looking a little bit closer to home, Rishi.
Let's give Suzanne a chance to come back. Suzanne, a number of our viewers this morning have been saying that they thought it was really positive that the Prime Minister had made this speech. And those viewers might criticise you for saying, well, all right, you've got a thing about Rishi Sunak, you think he's failed, but, shouldn't there be celebration about someone who has turned a corner here and is now putting forward a clear and positive vision? That would be the criticism of what you've said, Suzanne.
Yeah, of course, we have to move forward. We are where we are. It's no good crying over spilt milk. But the fact is, he really hasn't yet outlined very much about what he's going to do here. And I do understand viewers who say, yes, finally he's woken up. Great, he has woken up. But the problem is now so much more difficult to solve. I unfortunately got caught up in the very first hate march. I think they are hate marches on our streets on a Saturday. The atmosphere was horrendous. I'd had lunch with Jewish friends. The march went past. They felt intimidated. It was obvious to some of us what was going to happen here, and I can't quite understand why it's taken the authorities so long to wake up to this. The police, the clear evidence of two-tier policing here, allowing anti-Semitic slogans to be beamed onto the House of Commons being the pinnacle, perhaps, of this. So there's a huge amount now to do. And, we all know when a genie is out of the bottle, and this genie is well and truly out of the bottle, it's nigh on impossible to put it back in. So I feel intense frustration that there have been warnings over many decades about this growing threat to British country and the British values. And now it's going to be a very hard job to actually, as I say, challenge it. We've had this long march through the institutions, through our police forces, through our universities, through all kinds of institutions, this left-wing, pro-Islamist ideology. It's going to be very hard to crack down on it. I want to see his plans. I want to see what he is going to do about it. But, just a simple fact, he's tried to stop the boats. He's failed absolutely on that. Again and again, we've seen legal challenges. If he can't even get that right, and we have a situation where we have had nearly 117,000 people come in on small boats, and we don't know what their backgrounds are since 2018.
They've gone down again, Suzanne, they have dropped again.
But bear in mind, though, that our army is only 77,000 people. And yet we have allowed so many people in. We don't know their backgrounds. We don't know their intentions. My goodness, he's got a heck of a job on his hand, and I'm not sure he's the man to do it. I don't think he's tough enough for this job.
Kevin, final word from you?
I'm just struck by the reference that he used to some communities living parallel lives. And this is the kind of phraseology that was used in the Richer report into the disturbances in Oldham back in 2001, I think it was, 2002 perhaps. 20 years where we've had a kind of an issue and a problem with elements of our society clearly not in tune with the majority of our society, if I can put it like that. And here we are 20 years later, and we've still got this problem. I just struck me, Rishi Sunak's address last night lacked substance. And I think it's probably just reflective of the fact that he's got a few weeks or a few months left in 10 Downing Street, and he's just kind of firing off random kind of incoherent thoughts at this stage. There's no substance there at all.
One thing it did do was knock George Galloway off the front pages today.
Well, perhaps so. It strikes me if that's the objective, then again, it doesn't really say much where the government is at the moment. But if that's its priority,
I have to say, I think it's quite astonishing that it's taken the election of George Galloway to make him wake up. I'm afraid there have been far more worrying things happening in our society than that.